in white. We already had a look. Subbu Iyer, who is the chief executive of HREEMM, who is also the presenting partner. He helped us lay down the bucket areas. We are very fortunate to have him as the conference chair. He is a design thinking strategist. He has defined and led enterprise transformation programs across large-scale organizations such as American Express, Knots, P&O Netloyd, South African Revenue Services, SRF, amongst others. He has been a serial entrepreneur and an entrepreneur. He has been associated in leadership roles with organizations such as Coopers, Librand, TCS, Cambridge Technology Partners, and Wipro Technologies. As an entrepreneur, he has founded Behind Technologies and none the key systems in the space of IP and product development. And as I mentioned, he's currently chief executive of HREEMM, founded to lead transformation growth in individuals, enterprise, and societies. Please welcome Subbu Iyer as the consultant. Welcome.
Thank you, Abed. It's a pleasure. This is my second year being associated with This is my second year being associated with UBS Transformance. It's a pleasure welcoming all of you to this edition. My privilege to chair this event. So, success stories of design thinking, I would basically say, look no further than the planet Earth. There is no greater inspiration for design thinking than the planet that we actually live on. It is design thinking for you because it operates with the 5 elements. It operates, it is probably seen for thousands of years, for generations and generations. It has already foreseen what human life requires on this planet. So, somebody asked this question, what is design thinking? You wanted to know what is design thinking actually? A very concise, precise definition. In this day and age, when we are in this, I'm going to talk about the age that we are, which is basically what everyone is calling the Industrial Revolution, the 4th Industrial Revolution, right? Precision is extremely critical, principally because we have less time, less money, less resources, less of everything, and we have to try and make more of it somehow, right? Why? Because we and our past generations have screwed everything around our resources that we had at our disposal, and now it is time that we kind of change that, we repair that, we renew that, and this is the time. So design thinking is essentially connecting 3 journeys, and there is absolutely no other way of looking around it. It is connecting the journey of life with the journey of your customers, because your enterprise comes after that, the journey of your enterprise. The journey of your enterprise would essentially therefore be a journey in excellence. And this journey in excellence is not an abstract term. This journey in excellence is essentially a journey from innocence to excellence, traversing through innocence, understanding, awareness, understanding, definition, competence, excellence. And as you keep moving, traversing through life, you will at various points in time, as you're entering this journey of excellence, always be at one or other points. The most important part is for you to be able to recognize where you are and where is the destination, and how do you bridge this chasm between the status quo to the desired state. And that desired state can be different for different people, and we will probably talk about that more. But again, coming back to the Vedic philosophy, questions. This is the problem with human beings. Why are we so screwed up in our societies today? Because we have tried to answer more than ask. Learning occurs by asking and not by solutioning. So first, before you come to the part of solutioning, ask questions. Ask relevant questions. Ask deep questions. Okay? Don't shy away from asking questions. Please feel free to interrupt any one of us. Because By asking questions, you are creating an opportunity for learning. But I would like to caution you, again, the way the philosophy talks about, in fact, it is the first 4 verses of the Rig Veda which basically talks about learning, because it's very important, it's essential. It says there are 3 types of questions that people can ask. The first type of question is a question that establishes, I am superior in intellect to you. The second type of question tries to establish the inferiority of the person whom you're asking that question of. There is a third type of question, a question that basically says, this is a question I ask because it is going to help everyone in this room. And the Rig Veda says, please stick to the third part and not the first 2, because, and unfortunately, we have more of that self-aggrandizement in questions 1 and 2 that is not learning. So let us try and stick to a format of learning and probably keep asking questions that will help everyone in this room, including you, to be able to create and make something better of our lives and society. So having said that, we are at a very... Please. Yes. So design thinking, the first and foremost fundamental definition of design thinking, that is the question that was asked, is connecting the journeys of life with the journey of your customer, with the journey of your enterprise or your excellence. The journey of your enterprise has always got to be, without negotiation, a journey in excellence. And that journey in excellence of your enterprise, of course, has to percolate down to the individuals, the teams and the individuals that participate to make your enterprise. Enterprise is not made of bricks and walls or even technology. Yes, technology will be centric, but it will always be used by people, the intelligent ones who inhabit this planet. And I hope that always, so there is this question, so I'm just going one step further. There is a lot of hoo-ha that is made about human-centric design. Who said design can be anything else but human-centric? It's a question to ponder, right? So we are at this juncture. We have what we call as the 4th Industrial Revolution. Why should we consider this important? The first Industrial Revolution was around mechanization. The second Industrial Revolution was around being able to utilize the availability of resources around us more effectively. The third Industrial Revolution was more about globalization, trying to spread. At around this point in time, which is 1985 to 2015, it became slightly unpopular and probably non-pragmatic to go and invade other countries, right? And establish either the British Empire or any other kind of empire. So military was not an option, right? So we human beings. So and that is how life started shifting itself more towards intellectual societies, collaboration and globalization. And now we are taking that globalization, to the next level, which is interacting with each other in real time. We talk about things like virtual reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning. And I come across, happy to have the ability to work with enterprises, and I walk and I keep talking and I keep learning all the time. And, and especially in the startup ecosystem, we have a lot of people talking about virtual reality and building these technologies. And I keep asking, why are you doing this? And, while they keep talking about many things like, we want to do this, that, and the other, the intent is never, ever clear. The intent is never ever trying to connect these 3 journeys. How are you going to be relevant? And why am I saying this? I have a very fundamental angst about this. The reason why I have an angst about this is that there is no self-belief in these people, these young startups, that they can be the Google, the Apple, the Cisco's and of this world. They don't have that belief. Yeah, so if you are not going to start up with that high optimism, how the hell are you ever going to be that? So the next question, and to answer about design thinking is always about the intent. And why I'm saying this is, do not confuse the intent with the implementation. Design thinking is about intent. Design is about implementation. Steve Jobs, there's a popular, quote of Steve Jobs says, "Design is what works." Right? Yes, but that is what works in implementation. But design thinking is not that. Design thinking is the abstract. That will connect it to the detail. The reason, what you need to understand in that abstract connecting to detail is, when you imagine that abstract, it is through a process of inquiry. And when you inquire, there are many things that you have inquired and that is in the abstract that people may not be relevant. Your customers may never be ready for it. Now, by inquiring and finding that abstract, what are you in a position to do? You are in a position to educate, get people to own that idea or concept, and then institutionalize it by making a commitment. So, a very important aspect of connecting design thinking with design is this journey of education, ownership, and commitment. We are in an age today where if you do not, right at the outset, whether you are an established business, so there is one question that has been asked, which is, how do we turn around organizations? It does not matter whether you are talking about a manufacturing organization, service organization. Let me make this one clear in absolute terms. Every single organization, every one of our enterprises in this room needs to transform. The way we are structured, the way we have created our organizations is irrelevant. I repeat that word, is irrelevant to the economics. So all of us understand this term economics, so that is why I'm using it very, very specifically. It is irrelevant to the economics and the ergonomics of our present and the future. And you need to think about it. Why? Because we have created, so the enterprises that we have today, and there are a lot of startups that are actually starting up also, are all on the basis of what worked 20 years ago, or 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And you have a situation today where technology is changing every 3 months, the way in which you perceive what can happen, how you can, and what is this? What is this change? And let's understand very specifically what this change is. This change is about data being captured at its source. And when data is captured at its source, it is just not left as information. So data gets converted into information. Information gets converted into intelligence. Intelligence is only intelligent when it is contextual. Otherwise, it's rubbish. And how can contextualization happen? Not by placing some server in the cloud, please. It doesn't happen that way. The contextualization happens when you are able to profile, personalize, and differentiate. The 3 P's. And this is part of imagination because it is a very difficult, extremely arduous subject. It's not something that you can achieve very easily. So, if you do, and how do you achieve this easily? Look at Facebook. Look at Cambridge Analytica. So, so when you don't develop it as a science, the easiest way to do it is to steal. So you have curated data in some form or the other, which you use, and you deceive yourself, you deceive the Trump campaign, and you deceive the people of America, you can deceive any number of them, but life will get, so disruption, the other question that was asked. So what is disruption? This disruption is not a great disruption. It is taking our societies 4 steps backwards as opposed to taking it 4 steps forwards.
Which disruption?
the disruption around how machine learning, artificial intelligence is being utilized today. It's a very arduous step of this conversion from data to information to intelligence to knowledge to innovation. So this next steps of information to intelligence to innovation, knowledge to innovation, is a very carefully crafted method that design thinking needs to imagine and enable, because this is going to have every organization trying to build its master data, the metadata, the analytical data, and the cognitive data, the data that is learned on a daily basis in every single transaction, and its own. So, I don't have to steal it. We all have learned this premise of the fact that, we need to own property. How different is today's currency, today's property? If you go out there and steal money from the bank, you will be jailed. But Zuckerberg has given a congressional hearing yesterday, and he's going to be fined, and he's going to go back and keep doing the same thing over and over again. He is not the first one, and I am not standing judgment on Mark Zuckerberg. He is not the first one, and he is not going to be the last one who is doing this. We have done this in one way or the other in our societies systematically. What is the pivot? The pivot is to understand that there is a difference between systematic systems and systemics. We are at a stage in our lives today where we need to pivot to become systemic, something which is unprecedented. So the definition of systemic is something that has not been done before. We need to pivot to systemic. Systems is out of the box. It's still good, but not good enough. Because the foundation and the very premise of life is changing completely. So, what we need to establish, therefore, is that today there is a fundamental connect. We need to re-establish that concept of who we are. We keep talking about modeling businesses. Everybody talks about business modeling. You need to be able to go back to the concept of what your business or your enterprise is all about. How does it engage? There are two keywords which are loosely used in organizations and in societies today are engagement and experience. Of course, most of the people try and use the only word experience. And experience is nothing without engagement. Engagement is the process that enables an experience. Experience is essentially interaction. How much more time? I'm going to take, with your permission, because I was trying to address this. Give me 5 minutes. So we need to be able to connect the conception to the culture, the values, beliefs, assumptions, to the capabilities, which is a dual word again, which combines the capacity to transform and the ability to execute. And finally, configure your enterprise to the relevance of who you are as an enterprise, as a society, as a family, as an individual, as a human being. Right? In doing that, 7 technologies are fundamentally changing. So, this technology, please imagine this. The most important technology that enabled life on this planet was fire. And today you have digital technology that is reshaping our lives. Pervasive computing, which is at the center, is basically a technology that is enabling you to be in constant real-time mode, exchanging and transacting data. For example, the very fact that I can stand here and probably, on the wall, look at questions, do this not just to this room, but I can address the whole world. And the whole world can be an interactive process. Or one of you people or somebody in this room could be diabetic, and there is a catheter that is basically monitoring their blood sugar movement. In addition to the fact that, you're talking about the interconnection with the cardiac or other parts of the body in a complete unison of entire body as opposed to distinct parts of the body. So, wireless networks, the enmesh networks are going to enable this, whether it is biotechnology. Biotechnology, again, is just not about the science that is being used towards sickness. Biotechnology is also the science that is now currently being examined and being utilized in the context of security. So which is the biggest threat today to society as far as security is concerned, if your health data is stolen, that can become the biggest source for bioterrorism. And that bioterrorism is far more powerful than any guns on the face of this earth, or bombs or missiles or whatever, right? So I'm losing time, so I'm going to rush through this. Leadership, therefore, is very, very critical. Every society, it does not matter whether it is advanced economically or otherwise, every society lacks leadership. And this needs to be examined. So those of you who are looking at design thinking, who are trying to create a design office, one of the most important things to really build this ability to convince your enterprise is we need to examine leadership. Do not smother your leadership saying you are absolutely great. How about starting by saying you absolutely suck? I'm not saying it in a judgmental manner, we all suck. We need to have the ability to look at ourselves in the mirror, to be able to recognize where we are, what we do, and take accountability for it. And that is authenticity. That authenticity should lead to an aspirational way in which we can see business, which is design thinking. Design thinking is about, again, imagining the aspiration. Perhaps you may not be able to deliver it straight away, but you must create a design that can bring it to aspirational level quicker. Right? And that is essentially the journey from conceptualization to commercialization, which I will talk about more in the afternoon. But the ability, therefore, is delivering without compromising on your ability to transform. Which is what? Is when you anticipate, you are able to understand what the future is. And you're able to then think of design as a means of bridging the gap between potential and performance, which is the other definition. And finally, agility is that. Agility is not just about doing software engineering. Agility is about being prepared. And these are non-negotiable absolutes that you need to be able to. So I'm glad that the question that was asked in education. So we talked about education, ownership, and commitment. How about starting that in K-12? How about starting seeding that, so that we don't develop the kind of citizens that who we are, in our children and the future generation, right? So how can we bring about the syllabus, the pedagogy that is today taught, whether it is K-12, whether it is higher education, is a piece of trash that has got no relevance. And that needs to change. And I'm sorry for using strong words, but that is how strongly I believe in what we are today as life. And so, we are given a little spark of madness, each one of us. Okay? Let's utilize that sparkness. Let's utilize that spark. And design thinking does not start with someone else. It starts with us. Okay? How are we going to be able to make our spark into the fire, the technology that society can utilize? Once again, I welcome all of you to this session. I hope that we have a great learning experience. Please keep asking questions and be foolish, be hungry, and be successful. Thank you very much.